Hi, I'm Joel Wright. I'm the pastor at the First United Church of Christ in Orlando, Florida. And I want to start out by talking about Rebecca's Pantry. We have a food pantry here at church. It began just as a few items in my closet a number of years ago in my office, so that when people came and asked for something, we could give them something. It's developed over the years. There was a young woman from the church who had passed away. Her family set up some things, and we have now named it Rebecca's Pantry. It has grown from people coming once or twice a month at the most to now we feed between 225 and 250 people a week. The need continues to grow. Sometimes it's difficult for us to do that, but we have been able to sustain that. But the real story I want to talk to you about is someone I met because of the food pantry. A number of years ago, there was a knock at the door and a man was there, a small man on a bicycle. He said, "I hear you have some food here. Could I get a little bit of food for myself and for my cats?" So we talked a little bit, and he told me his name was George. And George used to come back on a fairly regular basis, and he would always ask for some food for himself and for his cats. His health wasn't good. As I got to know him and talk with him more, he told me about having been a veteran from Vietnam. He talked about the different things that were going on in his life. As he eventually began to trust me more, he told me his name really wasn't George. That was just simply the name he used on the street. His real name was Andrew. Andrew and I would talk more and more. He began to trust the people here and open up a little bit. He came in one day and he had been beat up. They had stolen his bicycle. So we were able to find him another bicycle, and he continued like that. His health continued to be all kinds of problems for him. And he came in one day and said they had bulldozed the place where he had been living out in the woods. They'd come in and bulldoze the whole thing, cleaned everything off. The city was attempting to move the homeless from that area. He wasn't so concerned that he had lost everything. He was most concerned about his cats. And unfortunately, he never did find his cats. Continued to have trouble, and he started sleeping in the doorways here at church. I would come in the morning and find him sleeping in the doorways. We talked about what was possible for him. And I brought it to the church board that this was a man who needed some help. We had a shed in the back, and we said, "You can stay in there. It would be safer for you to be there than to be in the doorways." We were fortunate that we had electricity into the shed. We put him in there and asked him what we could do for him. We were able to help him get a cell phone so that he could make calls when he needed to. We got him a frying pan, a coffee pot. We wanted to get him a bed, but he said no, he didn't want all those other things. He just wanted his mat in there. He said he wanted to keep his life very simple. Eventually we were able to get him a television, a little fan. Repeatedly we tried to get him to go somewhere where he would be better taken care of, some of the facilities through the VA. Refused to do that. We were able to get him set up so that he was getting a small check each month through the VA, which helped with some of his expenses. We also urged him and many times just simply put him in the car and drove him over to the VA for some medical help. He changed the way we looked at things around here. He really felt like this church was a part of his family and that he was a part of this church. He would call me in the evenings to let me know if there were things going on around the property he didn't think were proper. Anytime there was a group here, he would call to make sure they were supposed to be here. Health continued to deteriorate. His bicycle was stolen. He got a little pink electric scooter, and that's how everybody really recognized him, as he would go around on that scooter. On Sunday mornings, he would be outside to greet everyone. Unbeknownst to most people, is during church or any time something was going on here, he would take his scooter and cruise around the parking lot to make sure their cars were okay. He didn't have any use for people who begged. He refused to do that. He explained to me that over the years he had collected cans, he'd done all kinds of things to have some kind of work so he could take care of himself. As he began to trust me more, he began to tell me more about his past life. When he had returned from Vietnam, he had gotten married, had children. His wife had died. He remarried. Some of the circumstances there are a little cloudy. Had another child. She apparently left. The state eventually came in and took the children because she left the children with him, and he was unable to get them back. He tried for several years, and it was a time period where it was difficult for a single father to keep the children. they said his work schedule and trying to take care of the children just didn't work. After about 4 years, they told him that he would never get the children back. That was something that troubled him deeply. We spent countless hours on the internet searching, trying to find the people, trying to find possibly this wife who had left, trying to find his children. He knew the names, but the records had all been sealed from the adoptions when they were adopted out. And so he spent all that time trying to find his children. He never gave up on that. But he did become someone very special here. He would come into worship. He'd watch what was going on, all the dinners and things we had at church he would come to. Probably one of the most touching things for me personally was one year, right at Christmas, he caught me outside and he handed me an envelope. And he said, "This is for you and your wife for Christmas." And he said, "I want you to open it." I opened it and there was some money in there. And I said, "Andrew, I cannot take this money from you. I have far more than you have. This is not appropriate for me to take from you." And he looked at me, and the thing I will never forget is he said, "Don't take this away from me." He, despite all the things that had happened, still had pride and dignity, really believed in people, had started to trust us here more and more. His health continued to deteriorate. He had to have oxygen all the time. Once again, we tried to get him to go to some facility where he would get better care, and he refused. He said, "This is my home. This is where I live. If you don't let me stay here, I'll go back out on the street." Repeatedly, we would have to call to have the ambulance come and take him to the hospital. He would stay a couple days, check himself back out. He just didn't want to be there. He wanted to be in that shed. And it became referred to by everyone here as Andrew's shed. To this day, it's still referred to that way. He had been very sick, and I knew that someday I would probably go back to check on him and find that he had died there. And it certainly did happen. One morning, they were bringing oxygen. The person drinking the oxygen came and said, "I think there's something wrong back here. I can't get this guy's attention." So I went back and did find that he had died. We still didn't know if he had any family or not. Police came and did their investigation, said they would be happy to call the county to take care of disposing of the body. We didn't feel that was appropriate. So we were able to call the funeral home down the street, Colonial Funeral Home, which is a part of Service Corporation International, and they have a special program for homeless veterans. And they provided for a casket for him. We did the service at the funeral home, and he was buried at the National Cemetery. We thought that was kind of the end of it. I was honored to be presented with the flag at his funeral because we didn't know of any family. Chaplain Kathy did a little article and put it on the internet about this whole thing, and lo and behold, about 2 months later, I get a phone call from a woman who said that she had been his second wife. She was trying to trace him down some things. Her daughter had found some information about him. We corresponded back and forth a little bit, and that was kind of where it ended. Right after that, I got a call from a woman who said, "I think my husband is Andrew's son." And it evolved that actually he was Andrew's son. His name had been changed, and actually his adoptive parents had named him Andrew. I had the privilege of meeting this young man. He is in the Marine Corps. Because of the connection that was made, he was able to connect with several brothers and sisters that he didn't ever know really existed. He's been able to reconnect with some of his family. When he and I met, the thing that kind of warmed my heart was I was able to tell him that his father had never given up loving him, had never given up looking for him, and always had cared about him. He said that one of the things as being an adopted child, he had always wondered what was it about him that his parents didn't want. And I said, "I can't speak for your mother, I don't know her, but I do know your father never ever gave up trying to find you." Andrew touched our lives, made them different, made us appreciate things. He looked at me one time and said, "You're the best friend I've ever had." That's something I will cherish for the rest of my life. It all began with a few cans of tuna fish for him and his cats. For all of us, we never know how far the little things in life are going to go. Because of that, a young man was able to get some closure on some things in his life, to find some of his family. Because of that, we've all been touched by it, and I think been made a more compassionate people. We miss Andrew. He was a special kind of man. Had a tough time in Vietnam, as many people have. Came back and faced some difficult times. Unfortunately, that was a time when those who had served weren't appreciated for their service. Many kept it a secret afterwards. Tragedy. Many lives were destroyed by it and crushed. And I hope the day comes when we can really honor all those people who have served our country and done what they should do, and be thankful for the service they've given. Thank you.